Hello and
Hi.
welcome to the Animated Music Video Show, the show where we talk about some of the best animated music videos.
Our names are Eleanor and Giovanni, and today we're talking about Fell in Love with a Girl, The White Stripes, which was directed by Michel Gondry, who is my favorite director.
And it's my favorite director too, so it's a pleasure to talk about this video.
So Michel Gondry was sort of hired by accident for this video because The White Stripes asked their record label for the guy who made the Beck music video, Devil's Haircut, and they gave the name Michel Gondry, and he actually directed a different music video for Beck, which is Dead Weight, another fantastic video, but completely live action.
Yeah, and the most important thing to mention in this happy accident is that after this video, Michel Gondry continued making some other videos for the White Stripes, which is something that clearly show the love from White Stripes for Michel Gondry's work, which is fantastic. And some of the videos use some of the same techniques, which is animation. So it's that part of the style of Michel Gondry, where you can see different approaches of animation, live action, incorporate through music videos.
Yeah, I think it's a sort of a perfect happy accident. I love the word happy accident for this because I feel like Michel Gondry is so well known for being really meticulous with how he uses time and how he uses rhythm because he's also a drummer. And I feel like when I think about Jack White, I think about someone who's very meticulous with aesthetic and also with certain ways in which he controls his music. So I think they're just a perfect creative team, really.
Yes.
I'm not surprised they did more than one video together.
Yes, I like how now that you mentioned that Michel Gondry is musician, is a drummer, I think that influenced in the way that he approached the music videos, because the timing in this video is relevant to mention, because all the shots are in some way have a rhythm that match with the music. And when I mention the word rhythm, it's mostly about the rhythm in the animation that match, because sometimes we think that rhythm is a word that is just applied for music, but actually in animation we use rhythm. So the characters or the camera movements or the movements of the objects can increase the rhythm, the speed, and that enhance the music or just work in parallel with the music to make the video stronger.
When I think of the song Fell in Love with a Girl and I think about the video, I think of words like hectic and frenetic. It's like an intense experience. And I think that what it shows is Michel Gondry understood what the song was about and understood what kind of feeling to bring to this music.
Yes. And the aesthetic of this video is clearly handmade, which is something very important because it shows some of the approaches from the White Stripes, which is the same characteristic of recording some things by themselves and the craft of the making records, which is something that I have researched and see through the time in some of their records, how they love using vintage gear, tapes, old tape recorders and all that.
Using this kind of DIY aesthetic, which I think is very relevant to Michel Gondry because he has the visual version of a DIY aesthetic.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, some of the things that are very curious in this video or are just simple hidden things that we started to discover is that in the first shot, the kid that appears in that shot is Michel Gondry's son.
Like a little mini me. He looks so much like him.
Yes. From that part, we can see the first shot here. And from that part, it moved to a shot of UV meters, which is fantastic in this video because it shows also this synchronization with the music. And also it's important to mention how they approach a characteristic of the Legos, which is the transparent
Yeah.
blocks. And it's very simple how they made it. They just, I guess, well, they put a light behind it, and that was enough to create this beautiful effect of the UV meters. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the technique in this video is really interesting in general because it's kind of like a type of rotoscoping, really.
Oh yes, that is very it's something that I would like you to explain in detail.
Sure. So I think this is interesting because a lot of the time when people animate with Lego, they're animating with little characters, but in this video, they're animating with the blocks of color. And the way that Michel Gondry did this was that he filmed the video with his camera.
It's a mini DV.
His mini DV camera. And he filmed the white stripes performing and also doing things like swimming and running up the stairs, and then turned this into a sort of pixelated effect in the computer, and then gave this to 15 different animators, and they made the images, which they could then photograph. And I think this is a really clever technique with the Lego because it means that they're sort of able to reuse some of the shots in conjunction with each other, like place characters in front of moving backgrounds, or create this sort of depth effect by putting space between different chunks of Lego.
Yeah, which is something that saves a lot of time because it's like economize a lot of animation, which is something we will see when. It's one of the first shots when the character is playing the guitar. The guitar is static in the background, and it's just the hand which is moving, which is this picture. And it is something very clever because sometimes when we think about making a stop motion animated music video, we think that everything has to be moving in kind of like in an extreme, but it's not true. Sometimes animators can save time and without losing the quality of the video.
Though I don't think saving time was necessarily a priority on this video because it took 15 animators about 2 months to make, which is really a lot of man hours.
Yes, absolutely.
But the thing that I think is quite interesting about that shot with the guitar also is that it's the only shot that I've noticed that has any part of Lego which isn't one of the bricks. They have little wheels from a car.
Yeah, and they did a fantastic job replicating or copying the guitar that Jack used because is if I'm not wrong, is an airline guitar, which are guitars made out of plastic, the bodies, and they are kind of different and weird. So they did it in a fantastic way, like with all the little details.
Well, Lego is probably a perfect aesthetic for recreating that kind of guitar then, if it's got that plastic feel.
Absolutely. It matches pretty well.
And something that I think is really useful about having a shot like this at the beginning of the video is that it establishes the realism of it, because it establishes something that says this is the white stripes, they're playing music. Because some of the other shots are very simplified. They're almost stick figures.
Absolutely, yes.
And they're kind of very hectic movement. So you really need a few establishing shots to make it clear what's happening in this video.
Yes, especially because some of the shots are very powerful in terms of colors and movements, because it's almost a pixelated video all the way through, and it could be tiring for the eye to watch entirely. So having some moments where there's some established backgrounds that are mostly static and they have something in front that move, creates this dynamic in the video where you have some moments of calm, which are not super calm, but well, in the context they are calm, and then some other movements that are a bit more aggressive or more fast.
And having the things like the cleverly hidden CG shots,
oh yes,
for example.
That is something that I think one of the reasons probably that they did some shots in CG was maybe because the amount of Lego bricks that they will need to make this um, uh, level of detail, it will be too much, huge. So and the probably it wouldn't be noticeable that they use Lego. So, anyways, was easier
Yeah.
just to make some shots that had that amount of detail in CG rather than use tons and tons of Legos and have a really hard time animating that.
Well, I suddenly didn't notice until you told me which shots they were.
So yeah, well, there you have it. There are some shots that are just blended in, and it's very difficult to notice. So it's a great resource to think about when you are making a video, that not everything has to be restricted with the technique you are using. Sometimes you can blend some things to make your life a bit easier.
Well, yeah, I think sometimes animators don't think about this because, especially if you're using traditional forms of animation, you think this is the animation that I'm stuck with. I have to resolve this in stop motion, or I have to resolve this in drawing.
Yeah,
But very often, people still use special effects, visual effects,
absolutely. Yeah.
with stop motion and with other techniques with animation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, well, it's the technology, and if you can use it to save some time, well, why not?
Well, and considering how long ago this video was made and technology has only improved, there's all kinds of things that you can do combining different forms of animation in ways that people won't even see.
Yeah, well, it's so noticeable even at this time. So it was well done. And something else is about the shadows. Let's talk
Yeah,
about the
I love
shadows.
the shadows.
The shadows in these videos, in this video, are well planned, and some of the shadows also match with the movement, and that creates some realism in the video and credibility, because when we see these pieces of Lego, sometimes it's difficult to think, are they real or not? But then when you see the shadows and see everything together, how everything react at the same time, is something that brings a lot of credibility to the video, and a specific look as well. So if you have the opportunity to watch this video and analyze the shadows, please do it, because you will find how they are well planned and in contrast with the character and the backgrounds, for example.
Yeah.
And you mentioned also
Yeah, well, it would be very easy to have a very flat looking video with this kind of animation, but the fact that they intentionally put some space between different things or have a light from the side that creates a very strong shadow makes it look much more visually interesting, and also makes the DIY kind of aesthetic they're going for much, much clearer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my favorite instance of this is actually a little subtle thing towards the end, which is that there's a shot where Jack White is swimming underwater, and they've indented the character just half a Lego block into the water, which gives this feeling like he's actually submerged. And I think that's something that can be quite difficult to do with these kinds of materials, because you don't have the ability to do layers in the same way that you do in other forms of animation if you're doing something a bit experimental like this. So I think that's a really clever use of the medium of Lego.
Absolutely. I guess it will be more difficult to animate each frame, but it pay off that take the effort, because are those details where sometimes the feel and the quality of the video enhance all this effort.
Yeah. And then the other thing which we were talking about in relation to this was the way that they animate faces in the shape of the cube of two flat layers joining at a right angle and the face in the middle. I think that creates something that's very specific. I haven't really seen many people do something like that in a video like this.
Yes, and also because it breaks a bit the that everything have to be established as a 2D surface. So when you have this 3D face singing and reacting that in such a way with the lighting, it's something that give you a different feeling and a different perspective Because let's put it in this way. Sometimes you have a music video and you have different camera angles, but in this video, it's different because
it's mostly straight on.
Yeah, and even if some shots are or represent some camera angles, you know that the surface is completely flat.
Yeah.
So having a 3D face, it just create more contrast in the video and give you something different and keep the attention and the interest in the video, which is something important to have as well.
And it makes me think a little bit of childhood. I think that this video has this really naive feeling, starting with the kid playing with Lego, but also the fact that it's only the bricks and it's used in creative ways to make stick figures and make these square faces and make all these kinds of things that remind me of being a kid and not having every Lego set. Like these days, there's so many different types of Lego, but they're so expensive. And most kids, they just have, you know, their box of bricks, you know, 1 or 2 sets from their favorite movies. And that's what they have to work with. And they will be creative and they will find a way to make what they want to make. And that's what I feel when I watch this video. It looks like a kid has made what he wants to make with what his parents bought him.
Yeah, and it creates a magnificent style as well. So it's just something that, well, sometimes it's in the simplicity and the restriction of some tools that you use. Is that what creates the style?
Yeah. And this restriction that is so much a part of who the White Stripes are.
Absolutely. The restriction in terms, not just in the blocks, but in the color as well, because the colors are pretty restricted in terms of Lego.
And the music is pretty restricted in terms of the instruments used.
It's all pure restrictions.
Pure restrictions. Jack White is pure restrictions.
Yeah, well, sometimes limitations bring specific solutions for some techniques, and also that brings a character and
more
identity.
Ideas. Yeah.
Well, and talking about Lego, something that happened related with this video was that they tried to do a partnership with Lego to make some Lego
like a Lego set
related with the band. And Lego say, no, we are not interested in that.
We don't like to market to people over 12.
Yes. And then when the video got really, really famous and well, I don't know if you use the word viral, because at the time viral was not a word, but...
yeah, I mean, it won lots of awards and things as well. And it got really prominent.
Just popular. Yeah. Lego went back and, hey, let's please do something. And they say, no, you had your chance. Which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode.
And I hope you like this video as much as we do.
Yes. And if you have any comments, please watch the video, analyze the video. And if you have any comments, please leave them below. Share with your friends. Please consider to subscribe to our channel. And see you in the next video.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.